Okay, so let us start this session. Ladies and gentlemen, tech enthusiasts and aspiring developers, welcome to yet another speaker session of Opencode'23. I am Raj, your host for today. It has been a spectacular and exciting 4 days since the beginning of Opencode'23. Over 200 participants have been actively contributing throughout these past few days, and we are grateful to each and every one of you and hope that this participation will only pick up pace over the remainder of this event. OpenCode'23 isn't just an event, it's a platform that unites us and talents in the pursuit of technological excellence. Over the next few weeks, we invite you to immerse yourself in a plethora of projects spanning various domains, including web development, app development, competitive programming, blockchain, machine learning, and design. To all the incredible participants who have joined us today, your passion and commitment to open source development are the cornerstone of this event. Your presence here ignites the spirit of collaboration and innovation. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to introduce Sri Lakshmi Bharti, our speaker for today. Lakshmi is an entrepreneur in the blockchain and Web3 domains, co-founding companies like the Phoenix Guild, which is a Web3 community, and she has also co-founded an NFT marketplace named Naksh at Naksh.org. She has also worked as a product developer at an apparel manufacturing unit in the past. She is notably an avid traveler, having lived in 3 countries and traveled to more than 27 countries. Interestingly, she has done her formal studies in fashion domain, having received her undergrad in fashion technology from NIFT Pune and notably her master's in fashion retail management from the London College of Fashion. So please join me in welcoming Sri Lakshmi Bharti, whose insights and experiences promise to enlighten us during this speaker session. Uh, you can go ahead, ma'am.
Hi, everybody. Just give me a minute. Done? Should I start? Hello? Okay. So should I go? Okay. Cool. Perfect. Hi, everyone. This is Sri Lakshmi. I'm one of the co-founders of the Phoenix Guild. Thanks for the amazing introduction, Raj. Before starting off with today's session, I wanted to just give you a brief intro about my organization. Like you mentioned, I've been in the space for about 2.5 to 3 hours. I started in 2021. And I'll talk about a lot more about my journey in the opportunities page. But just to give you a brief intro about what we do at the Phoenix Guild, is that we work with protocols and projects in the Web3 and blockchain ecosystem to actually create educational material and deliver it to the audience so that we can get them onboarded to the Web3 ecosystem. We focus on builders. So, what I mean by builders is not just developers, but everybody who's um, open to contributing in the space and want to build projects or want to become entrepreneurs, want to work in the space, etc. We try to train them so that they can avail opportunities in the space. And I'm really happy to be here to talk about blockchain and how you guys can get started. Right. I'm going to keep the session very light. The agenda is going to be about blockchain, about why open source and how you can potentially start contributing, why you should be contributing, and what are the career opportunities in the space. I would love if there is interaction, and yeah, let's get going. We'll start off with introduction to blockchain, but prior to that, let's understand what is Web3, right? So to understand, I've put a mini table here to differentiate between web 1, web 2, and web 3, because I think a lot of people have this question that what is web 3, how is it different from what's currently present, which is ideally web 2. So to start off with, web 1.0 was nothing but like a static page that you read, right? It was just the readable text in the world wide web, while web 2 was a little bit more advanced, where it was readable and writable, and where you could do interactions. So everything that you see normally, right? Like for example, the Facebook interactions, WhatsApp, Instagram, any Google, currently anything that you're doing, Wikipedia, all of them are web 2, where the data is stored in a centralized server and you are able to interact with it. Then currently we are evolving to web 3, which is an advanced level where it is executable. Basically, it's advanced concepts where machine to machine are able to interact, right? And for example, like blockchain obviously, but like AI, all of that, where the usage of human is very very minimized. Like the technology has become so advanced that they are able to execute things without needing an external party's help. That is called web 3. That's web 3.0. And currently the world that we are living in, right, it's fully hyper connected. We are all always on internet. Whatever we want to do, like we've become so advanced that everybody has like UPI. Transactions take seconds, and that like the world is moving so fast, and all because we're all hyper connected. But one of the things that we don't realize is that all of our data, all the transaction that's happening, is actually we trust a third party to for execution of these, to protect our data for execution of these transactions. I'll fill in a lot more about what these third parties are. So what is the one thing that's actually missing in the web 3 umbrella currently is trust. Because web 2, we know that we are able to trust these banks, etc., for going through our transaction, but what about web 3? And let me talk about what are these third parties and what is this trust all about, right? Let me give you a small example. So let's say you're going to a cafe, right, and you want to buy a coffee. What you do is you take your card, you try to swipe. You must notice that the transaction that you're trying to go through has to be approved by the bank. So bank over here is ideally playing the third party. So the bank will ensure that you have money. It will store the transaction in the ledger, and once it approves that, like, you have the money to go through to buy a coffee, it approves the transaction, and then the cafe owner gets the money, and that's when you get your coffee. So this entire process is where the transactions and the acceptance is gone to a third party. You entrust the bank to approve the transactions for you, because your entire money is stored in the bank. So here bank is the third party that I'm talking about. And to not be dependent on a third party is why we have blockchain. so that you don't have to rely on a third party, you don't have to rely on an entity, but you can just rely and keep your data and your money to yourself. So which is why blockchain is called a trust machine, right? Because when you're interacting in the internet, you don't know who you are interacting with, right? And it's not so easy to trust each other, which is why blockchain has created networks and nodes which you can rely on, which you can trust. Basically, it's like how you trust internet for everything, which is nothing but a chain of networks. Blockchain is also a chain of networks which ensures trust so that you don't have to rely on a centralized party. How this works, I'll explain it further. So in the same, let's take the same example where you're taking bank as a third party person, where you're trusting the bank that they go through the transaction. But that here in blockchain is replaced by networks, nodes of networks. So what happens here is you just have to go through the transaction, go through a network for the transaction, and it's immediately processed and you get the coffee that you're availing, which means it facilitates any intermediation, which creates trust. Basically, there are no intermediate parties here. There is nobody in between. Koi beech ka banda nahi hai. There is no middleman. There's just a network that you have to trust for the transaction to go through. And this network is also created and validated by you, right? So far we know that everything we've not just us, our family, everybody trusts the bank. We've been working in a centralized system forever. So why do we need a decentralized system? Why do we need blockchain? Like, why is this evolution basically required? To understand that, let me just take you through a story here. So in 2008, there was a huge recession in the US where almost all of the banks went bankrupt. People lost a lot of money, and because one of the reasons why people lost a lot of money is because they had put all of their money in the bank. So when banks declared a bankruptcy, they obviously had nowhere to go, right? There were so many livelihoods that were lost. People didn't know where to go, what to do. There were so many lives that were lost because people were in like a really shitty position, right? So to not to rely on a centralized server or a centralized entity or any entity, a person or a group. Satoshi Nakamoto is basically an anonymous person or group. Nobody knows who they are. They wrote a white paper called Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. So basically, what this Bitcoin spoke about, like what was the content of the Bitcoin peer-to-peer electronic cash system, is that um, you don't really have to rely on physical currencies. You don't have to rely on a centralized entity to do transactions. You can actually create a peer-to-peer network system, which is called blockchain, through which you can do digital transaction via digital currencies. And these currencies were named cryptocurrencies because they use a concept called cryptography, right? Which is nothing but like data encryption. It's a huge topic, but just a brief. So what he introduced the concept of cryptocurrency, and the value of these cryptocurrencies are actually created by people. So you create your network, you create your nodes, you validate them, and as and when more users use it, the value of these cryptocurrencies fluctuate. The more people use it, the value goes up. The less people use it, the value comes down. If there is a hacking, or if there is any yeah, if there's like a hacking or something that's not aligned, then it crashes, right? So that's how it works, but it's all a peer-to-peer network. You are responsible for how the fluctuation happens, and you are responsible on how the flow goes. I have a quick question here. So in 2010, something was sold for 10,000 BTC, which in today's value is $410 million. Can anybody tell me what this is? Can I see the chat? Okay, I'm not sure if I can see it.
So the audience can, write their answers in the chat.
Yes. You can guess what this is. It was a piece of something. To give you a clue, was sold for 10,000 BTC. Like people bought this for 10,000 BTC, did not understand the value of BTC back then. But today, one BTC is $40,000. Do we have any answers? Okay, let me reveal it. It was a slice of pizza. So somebody paid 10,000 BTC in today's currency, that's $410 million for a slice of pizza. Somebody had a
Yeah,
lucky day.
we do have one right answer from Ishan.
Oh, perfect. So exactly. So the value of BTC was not much when it was launched, because again there were not a lot of users. There was not a lot of ideas that were generated on top of it. There is a reason why today it's at $40,000 priced, right? So let me tell you on paper how the concept ideally works. There are petrol pumps, there are like restaurants, whatever, right? You need to pay for any and every activity that you're doing. And all of these are logged. Like these are basically written by one accountant called Alex. So Alex writes down all the data of all the transactions at every destination here, of how many people spend how much, etc. Now one day the village residents of the village are like, I want to see what is this transaction, can you like show it to me? Alex is They have asked Alex that we want to see what are these transactions. So what Alex does is that he displays the transactions in chronological order, which is like the first second, like the order of the transactions. He displays it to the public, which is called the public database here. And let's say one day, or like, I don't know, either somebody robs him, manipulates him, or there's like sudden greed, that Alex manipulates the data and he keeps some money in his pocket. Now there is no way to identify this, because all of this information was stored in a central data, which is Alex. Alex stored all of this information, so if he manipulates any data, if he manipulates any information, nobody will know. They are just working on a trust basis here, where they trust Alex that he might not, but let's say he does, there is no way to verify it, right? And these are some of the inconveniences that centralized system cause, which is why blockchain was introduced, where decentralization was introduced, where instead of putting the load on one party, instead of Alex having to note down all the transactions that are happening, keep a ledger for everything, they blockchain does something called distributed networks, where everybody in the village will be aware of what are the transactions happening by everybody all the time. As and when transactions are being registered, it will be noted by all the residents. So it's not one person who's going to be accountable, but it's everybody. So it's distributed, the transaction information is distributed amongst everybody. So how basically the building blocks work, right, in blockchain? So there are distributed systems where everybody who's working in a protocol or an ecosystem or contributing are aware of what's happening, and are aware of the transactions that are happening. These transactions are encrypted, right? So that which is through cryptography, and it works on peer to peer network, which means every time, let's say, you want to know about a transaction, you don't have to go to Alex to ask. You can either look at the transaction histories or yourself, or since it's a peer to peer network, you can check with anybody and everybody who's involved in the ecosystem. The fourth building block is consensus algorithm. So again, consensus algorithm in itself is a broad topic, but in brief, what it means is that it's not one party or one person cannot make a decision for the entirety. Everybody who's involved has equal say in it, and everybody contributes to the final decision. So in consensus algorithm, basically you need to take consensus of everybody who's contributing in that particular project protocol, or in this case, noting down of the datas. So this is how it was working in paper, right? But how does it actually work in the digital space? Is so there's something called blocks. So what these blocks are, like, so the data, the transactions that are happening, they are all stored in batches. So let's say if a block can handle about 10 batches or 10 transactions happening in like 10 minutes, 15 seconds, whatever, it's all stored in one block with a date and time, right? So there are multiple blocks created for every batch of transactions that are happening. And again, like I said, it's all through consensus mechanism. Everybody is aware, and everybody is consenting that these many transactions are stored in this block, these many transactions are stored in this block, and they are happening in chronological order. And these blocks are then encrypted um, through cryptography concepts, and they then become public, everybody can see it. And when these group of blocks are chained together, they are put on chain. So on chain is a term that's used a lot on blockchain, so that's why the word blockchain is introduced. So the blocks of transactions are batch of transaction are put in a block, and chains of these blocks are then stored on chain. And there are two types of blockchains. One is a public blockchain, one is the private blockchain. Public blockchain is what we will be talking about because that's what uses open source coding. Private blockchains are more used in confidential projects like government projects, banking system, etc. While public blockchains are can all the transaction can be seen by anybody and everybody, right? It's as easy as searching for a piece of article. For example, if anybody can see any transaction that's happening in a public blockchain. For example, if you want to go to if you want to see a transaction in Ethereum, you can go to Etherscan, type a wallet address, and you can see all of their transactions, right? You don't have to be the owner of the wallet. Anybody and everybody can see any transaction that are happening, where money is going from where, how much money, who has. All of it is completely transparent. So this is how it works in the digital space. So to summarize again what blockchain is, so it's basically a public ledger. It has private parts, but ideally it's a public ledger where all transactions are stored on chain, which means it's public. The network is distributed network, which means it's decentral again. The networks have multiple nodes where multiple people are accountable for each, right? It's decentralized. There's not a central entity that makes a decision for changes. It's a decentralized it works on consensus algorithm, which means people involved in the ecosystem contributing to the project or protocol have equal say on what would the next steps be on how they should go about it. And once a data is stored on chain, right, it becomes immutable, which means that it cannot be altered, right? Any data that's on chain cannot be changed, right? It's going to be there uh, permanently, which is why blockchain is majorly known for transparency, privacy, and security. Now, talking about, I spoke about public blockchains, right? So, what these public blockchains are, the projects that are built or the technology behind it is all open sourced. So, what I mean about open source is that all the tech that's used to build these networks, right, they are all they are all open. You can go see the tech behind it and you can contribute it, right? You can contribute to it. So why people use open source codes in blockchain is to ensure transparency and security. That's one of the main reasons, because every you can find out every project uses what kind of tech and how you can improvise on it. And why organizations use open source code is because blockchain is clearly a very new topic, and every day there's a new protocol or project coming up. So there's a lot of improvements that are required. People require recommendations, you can go contribute, etc., which is why organizations use. Why as an individual you should work on open source projects is, currently a lot of, not a lot, every protocol that has open source codes appreciate contributions, and these contributions can be monetized. They can be so you get benefits for contribution in terms of money, you can get in terms of jobs, you can build your profile, you can improve your skills, and you can, it's a peer, again, since it's a peer to peer network and peer to peer contribution, you can get feedbacks from people and how you can start building, right? Even if you're an absolute beginner, just go through like open source githubs and see how you can potentially contribute. There are multiple sources from which you can actually see. Each protocol has different platforms hosting their open source code. One of them would be only does, where you can go and contribute in starknet ecosystem, but that's a little bit more advanced. You can look for ethereum contributions online, you can look for bitcoin, etc. So this is one of the main reasons why open source code is used, right? So that you can go see how things are built. For example, in a web 2 world, open source is not just in web 3. Again, even in a web 2 world, you can go, for example, wikipedia is open source. You can go and edit the content anytime, anywhere. You can, but one of the drawbacks also for open sources, that let's say if you're writing something wrong, there has to be someone who has to cross check that. Otherwise it's going to be available, the wrong information is going to be on chain, or it's going to be present unless and until someone's going to come and correct it. So wikipedia is the biggest, I think, open source example in the web 2 world. But in public blockchains, almost every blockchain has open source code. So with Feeding Skill, what we do is we've curated a lot of resources, and we have collected and gathered information from basics to blockchain to advanced level concept. You can scan this QR code to avail. All of them are free. They are all again, they're all open source, which means that they are open to use for anyone and everybody. Please feel free to share the content as well. Some of them are created and curated by us, some of them people have contributed to as well, right? And okay, talking about career opportunities, prior to that, does anybody have any questions that I've covered so far? Because this career opportunities is my last topic, and post this will be done. So I'm happy to take any questions if there are. Or should we move to career opportunities and then ask for a Q&A?
We'll be having the Q&A at the last, so we can just skip ahead.
Okay, perfect. So prior to talking about like explaining the career opportunities, one thing I want to say is that irrespective of what your background is, even if you're from CS, even if you're not, even if you're no matter what your background is, there's a space for you in blockchain. All right. I come from a fashion background and I have two startups in the space. And I started my journey through a hackathon in 2021 with just posting ideas on hackathon pages, and then which got picked up. I got a grant and I built out a project. And the second thing that what I learned from that is how important community is, right? So one of the things that I mentioned is that in blockchain space, you don't work as an individual. There are people who are contributing to you, which means that you need a community for your project to actually succeed, right? Or your idea to actually succeed. So these community is what forms ecosystems. So these ecosystems uplift you, they contribute, right? And there are different ways you can contribute. You can, if you're an engineer, you can start ahead with coding. If you're a designer, you can get started with designing concepts, or like how you can make the user interface better, how you can make the UI UX better. If you're a graphic designer, you can share how you can easily share information to the publics, etc., right? Or if you're an entrepreneur, how you can work towards enhancing projects. If you're a project manager, how you can work on delivering these projects better. If you're an entrepreneur, how, what are the new ideas that you can potentially build on this ecosystem. There is an opportunity for anybody and everybody here. And one of the best, so the best part about blockchain is that you can actually earn while you're learning, right? There are so many platforms that lets you do that. For example, the only dust that I mentioned, right? Every time you contribute to their open source code, you get paid for it, right? There are so many learn and earn gamified platforms. Like you can look at, I think, meta sky, no, one of those, wait, or node guardians, where you can while playing you can learn. And every time you learn or like clear a stage, you get like some animated thing for your game which you can use in your next stage. So there are so many ways that you can actually contribute and learn. And if you start contributing to these ecosystems, you can work towards eventually getting jobs in these ecosystem, or starting a project of your own, or getting a grant to get started. So there's a space for everybody in this ecosystem, and that's one of the reasons why we started this community, to avail this, so that we can create awareness about the opportunities in this space. And that's about it. So if you really like the session and if you want to learn more, our entire community is on our Telegram and Twitter. So we have a lot of folks from different protocols and projects contributing, or part of the community. We can help out on how to get started or how to get opportunities in this space. And please feel free to share any feedback that you have. That's me. Open to Q&As.
Okay, so thank you, ma'am, for that wonderful presentation. So with that, we move on to the Q&A session. So to all the audience, if you have any sort of question or doubts, you can ask them in the YouTube comments. And
Sure.
it seems we already have some questions.
Mhm.
Okay, so the first is, how do you see traditional finance integrating with decentralized finance, and what hurdles need to be overcome for this integration to be successful?
So there are already a lot of DeFi protocols existing, right? And one of the big barriers, I think, that centralized finance, the decentralized finance has crossed over centralized finance is not an external party doesn't have to hold your money. For example, in decentralized finance, you have your own wallet, you have special pass keys that you hold, and which means that you are accountable for your entire money. So if, let's say, you get scammed, that's on you again, and not influenced by an external party. And most of the times it's only centralized networks that are, let's say, hacked, etc. Centralized systems. So in decentralized space, your money is safe with you. Some of the hurdles that I definitely think in terms of DeFi, especially let's say in Indian context, is also regarding regulations, because it's a big. I mean, I don't know if I should be saying this, but it's a big threat for the government when they don't have the authority over the inflow and outflow of the money, right? Which is why a lot of governments are focusing towards private blockchain. Like, you must have heard that India wanted to launch their own government wanted to launch their own cryptocurrency, which is why they were not accepting the public cryptos. um, so I think that's because they again want to be the power holder for that crypto, and how much transactions going where, etc., etc. But when it comes to using only public cryptos, that's like majorly avoided. So I think regulations is one of the biggest hurdles in India and in most of the countries. Apart from that, one of the things that was initially an issue, which is now solved by a lot of layer ones and layer twos, is amount of transactions and that can happen, and the security of aspect of it as well. But there are so many solutions that have come up now, and to make these transactions faster. And like Ethereum, when they initially launched, they could the transaction limit was so less, because of which the transaction cost was very high. But after Ethereum 2.0, and there are so many layer 2s that are built on top of it, the cost of transaction is reduced, and the security is increased, and the timings are reduced. I hope that it answers your question.
Yeah, okay, so the next question is, what should be, or rather, what is the future for NFTs regarding today's scenario?
So I think, coming from having an NFT startup, one of the things that I personally feel is that if your NFTs have good value to it, or if they come with benefits, only then it's going to work. Initially, for example, initially PFPs worked quite a bit, which was just an identity NFT, right? But now I feel like that era has sort of gone, it's faded away. So I would say NFTs with benefits that can offer you certain benefits to be part of the community or be part of the ecosystem, or you can avail benefit. For example, I think what a lot of these artists did were great. Like for example, Steve Aoki released series of his NFTs. So whenever you want to go to a Stevie Aoki concert, you either get priority passes, or you don't have to. In some concert, you don't have to buy a ticket if you're an NFT holder, or in some concerts you get like some discounts, etc., or you get like priority treatment. So these are some of the benefits that NFTs provide. But I think there are a lot of real world use cases to NFTs as well, and the more use cases the NFTs have, the better it is. What I feel is, in general, the notion of NFTs is not really accepted by a lot of people, just because initially a lot of PFPs was what that became very popular. And even with like crypto kitties, etc., nobody really understood the use cases behind it. So, which is why they started detrusting them a little bit. But I think NFTs have a good future as long as they have like good use cases associated to it.
Okay, moving on. The next question: what is the perfect technology or roadmap for blockchain development?
Uh, Perfect. I don't know, because I think it's still very new and people are working on it. So I think, like, I'm assuming you're asking how you want to get started. Is it like how you want to build your career in the blockchain space, or like how probably would want to have a startup? I guess I'm assuming that's your question. If that's it, then I would suggest start off contributing to hackathons, etc. Start with a project idea with a real use case. Learn about ecosystems that actually would probably need that, or you can also do the other way around, where you learn about ecosystems, protocols, and what they lack, and start building towards that. And once you start building towards that, you can understand what the needs are, iterate towards it to build a perfect project, I guess, in the blockchain space.
Okay, so the next question is, what is the impact of tokenizing real world assets, and what industries are most likely to benefit from this form of digitization?
So, one of the main reasons why people tokenize real life assets is so that it's stored on blockchain forever, because they are immutable, right? And also for a lot of copyright reasons, because let's say, for example, Hermes, they have their Birkin, which is extremely popular, and they have the rights associated with it. And if they put that on chain, it is with them forever. On another example, let's take Nike. Nike's logo, or their tagline, "Just do it," is very popular, but people can ideally use it or imprint it very easily. But when it's stored on blockchain, right, or when it's stored on chain, it's immutable, which means forever and ever it belongs to them. It's got 100% their identity. So a lot of folks actually want to convert their real world assets to, like, they want to digitize it so that it's on chain, it's a proof that it's theirs, right? And it's also known to everybody, anyone and everybody in the world. In one way, it also protects this, right? For example, in our NFT marketplace as well, we work with Indian traditional artists to actually digitize their artwork so that it can be shown to the globe, one. And second is that these kind of artwork sort of preserves the culture forever, right? Because it's stored on chain, so anyone and everybody will always know that who made it and where is it coming from, etc. What was the second part of the question again?
What industries are most likely to benefit from it?
I think and I think mostly people who are working in I would say privacy preserving, right? And also who want to, yeah, I think privacy preserving would be right, or people who want to preserve their info on chain, and so that people don't work like copy and things, etc.
Yeah, okay, that was a very elaborate answer with real world examples. Thank you for that. The next question is, What are some of the technological solutions we can use to reduce the cost associated with blockchain to compete with conventional technologies?
So I think there are already technologies that are introduced in this space that actually works on this. Like I mentioned, there are L2 solutions that are already introduced. So there is optimistic rollup. There are zero knowledge based rollups. There are validity rollups that are actually, so majority of the costs associated with blockchain is incurred in batching the transactions, right? And the number of transactions that can happen in a second. So this is what increases the gas price in the transaction. But now there are so many projects that have already come up which absorbs the gas. So there are so many projects that allows you to do gasless transactions. Or there are L2s that what they've done is that they have done what they're doing is they are rolling these transactions off chain, and only the final result is portrayed on chain, which means they're already working towards reducing the price drastically and trying to make it as seamless and as seamless as possible. There's also something called abstraction that's introduced, which means that you don't even have to connect or create a wallet. Ideally, you don't need to learn what a MetaMask is. You don't need to learn about any specific wallets, right? Through account abstraction integrations, you can directly log in, which means it makes the lives of web 2 users also very easy, so that your user interaction is so seamless that you are not doing any web 3 interaction on surface, because the wallets are created in smart contracts itself.
Yeah, I guess that explains the question pretty well.
Mhm.
The next question is, what emerging trends or innovations in blockchain technology are you most excited about?
Oh, am I? I am a huge fan of account abstraction ideally, but recently I learned something called pass keys, which is a new way, which is still very much in the exploration stage. That people are exploring on how people can onboard more users to the Web3 space, right? And apart from that, I am really very much into what ZK rollups do, zero knowledge rollups, because they work on mathematical data where they don't do batch transactions on chain. They take it off chain and then put it on chain and do verification, which is why it's validated by folks, and it's a validity rollup, which makes transaction extremely fast and extremely um, uh, uh, cost efficient. What zero knowledge rollups also do is that they don't store your identity on chain. One of the biggest reasons, like for example, people now in the web3 space, they don't want to do KYC processes, etc. They don't want to store their data anywhere, right? Nobody wants to like give your data to a centralized system to do a KYC. They don't want your Aadhaar to be stolen, Aadhaar number, or any private number, as a matter of fact, any private information, as a matter of fact. So what zero knowledge does is ZKP does is that they don't store your information on chain. They actually verify it on the surface level and approve it in the backend. So these are some of the latest tech that I'm super interested in, but I don't know what the level of the audience is, but if you guys are a little bit on the advanced side, definitely check out all what the L2s are doing currently, and there are L3s coming up to improve or support L2s already.
Okay, so nice to hear about your personal opinions on emerging tech. So the last question we have is, it's a little bit technical one. I A person asked, I made a project in which I wanted to store documents on the blockchain, but he has faced issues that the document was too heavy to be stored on the blockchain. So is there any solution, and how could have he stored it?
I mean, there are different blockchain storages available now. I'm not sure which decentralized storage you have used, but this would have been probably an issue an year down the line, because it's difficult to store heavy heavyweight this things documents. But right now there are so many new options that stores data in very seamless manner. You can check out anything and everything by protocol apps, like for example IPFS storage, web3 storage, NFT storage, Pinata, Tableland. Check all of these storage, decentralized storage. I think they work very well, and with IPFS, I think there are so many. With its latest and improving tech, I think they have increased their capacity as well. With respect to Yeah, I mean, Pinata and IPFS, I think the Web3 storage they are used by most of the protocols, and they can really store any and every heavy data product. So with some you might face an issue with cost, I guess, but there are so many free storages as well that maybe you can check out. I'm not sure which one you used, but there are a lot of decentralized storages that are available that can take heavy load.
So I guess that were all the questions which we had for today. And so, with that, we have come to the end of this resourceful and interactive speaker session. Remember, Open 23 is not merely about solving challenges, it's about forging connections, expanding your skill sets, and embracing the ethos of open source development. I encourage you all to make the most of this opportunity, interact with your peers, explore diverse projects, and elevate your skills. Remember, new issues and tasks are constantly being added to the plethora of repositories of Opencode'23. There is still a long way to go, and we hope that we will continue to receive your active participation throughout this event. Thank you once again to all the audience and Srilakshmi ma'am for your immensely informative and resourceful presentation. And so,
Thank
with
you.
that, we have reached to the end of this event. Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody. And please feel free to DM me via LinkedIn or Twitter. I'm at Sri Lakshmi Bharati. And please feel free to ping me if you have any questions. It was lovely talking to you folks, and all the best.